They thought getting married young would make their love stronger. They were in love, they trusted each other, and they believed that if they had found the right person, there was no reason to wait. But then real life began. Bills appeared. Dreams changed. Personalities became clearer. They discovered that loving someone is very different from knowing how to build a life with them. And suddenly, the question was no longer, do we love each other? It was, are we actually ready for marriage? Most people believe that if two people truly love each other, age should not matter. If the feelings are strong enough, they believe everything else will somehow work itself out. But marriage is not only about love. It is also about emotional maturity, money, communication, patience, responsibility, and knowing who you are before you try to build a life with someone else. When people marry too young, they may enter the marriage with a strong love, but very little understanding of themselves. And as they grow, they may realize that the person they married is growing too. The person you were at May 20th, not be the person you become at 25. So what happens when two people promise forever before they have fully discovered who they are? Is getting married young really a problem? Or is the real problem getting married before you are ready for what marriage demands? In this video, we're going to look at why young love can feel so powerful, what can go wrong when marriage comes too early, and what emotional maturity really has to do with building a lasting relationship. Subscribe to Varry Stories now and enjoy the problem with getting married too young as we journey ahead. At first, getting married young can look like a beautiful love story. Two people meet. They fall in love. They believe they have found the person they want to spend the rest of their lives with. So they decide, why wait? And honestly, there is nothing wrong with wanting to build a life with someone you love. The problem begins when love becomes the only thing you use to measure whether you are ready for marriage. Because you can be deeply in love and still be unprepared for marriage. You can care about someone, miss them when they are gone, and feel completely sure that they are your person. But marriage will eventually ask questions that love alone cannot answer. How do you handle money when there is not enough? What happens when one person's dreams change? Can you talk about difficult things without attacking each other? Can you control your anger? Can you admit when you are wrong? Can you make a serious decision without turning it into a fight? Can you give your partner space to grow without feeling like they are leaving you behind? These questions are where the real test begins. You may think the problem with getting married too young is simply age. But underneath the age is something deeper, identity. When you are young, you are still discovering who you are. Your goals may change. Your confidence may change. Your beliefs may become stronger or weaker. The things you wanted at 20 may not be the things you want at 25. And that can become difficult when you are already married. Imagine a young couple who gets married because they believe they know exactly what they want. At first, everything feels exciting. They make plans together. They dream about their future. They promise to stay together no matter what happens. Then life starts moving. One person wants to go back to school. The other wants to start a business. One wants children soon. The other wants to wait. One wants to stay in the same city. The other wants to leave. Suddenly, the person you married is changing. And the hardest part is that you are changing too. This is where many young couples become confused. They may think, you are not the person I married anymore. But sometimes, the truth is not that their partner changed into the wrong person. The truth is that both people are finally discovering who they are. This is why getting married too young can be difficult. You are not only building a marriage. You may also be trying to build yourself at the same time. And when both people are still growing, the relationship has to grow with them. That requires a level of emotional maturity that many young people have not yet developed. Emotional maturity does not mean knowing everything. It means being able to face uncomfortable feelings without letting those feelings control everything you do. A mature person can say, I am angry, but I need to calm down before we talk. They can say, I don't understand you, so I need to ask instead of assuming. They can say, I was wrong. They can hear criticism without immediately becoming defensive. They can understand that their partner is allowed to have feelings, needs, dreams, and weaknesses too. But when people enter marriage before learning these things, small problems can become much bigger. A disagreement about money can turn into a fight about respect. A request for space can feel like rejection. A different opinion can feel like betrayal. A change in plans can feel like the end of the relationship. Why? Because sometimes the couple is not only dealing with the problem in front of them. They are also dealing with fear. Fear of losing the relationship. Fear of growing apart. Fear that they made the wrong choice. Fear that their partner will become happier without them. And fear can make people react instead of think. You think you are angry because your partner changed their plans. But underneath the anger may be fear. Fear that you are no longer important. You think you are upset because your partner wants time alone. But underneath the anger may be insecurity. You think you are fighting about money. But underneath the fight may be two different ideas about what a successful life should look like. This is why marriage is not simply about finding the right person. It is also about becoming the right kind of person for a healthy relationship. And that is where getting married too young can become complicated. Because if you enter marriage before you understand yourself, you may expect your partner to help you become the person you have not yet learned to be. You may expect them to give you confidence, to give you direction, to fix your fears, to make you feel valuable, to always know what you need. But that is a heavy responsibility to place on another person. Your partner can support your growth. They cannot do your growing for you. And when both people expect the other person to fill every empty space inside them, love slowly becomes pressure. The relationship becomes less about growing together and more about trying to get the other person to make you feel okay. That is when a beautiful young love story can begin to feel like a prison. Not because the love was fake, but because love was asked to carry more than it could carry. Marriage does not stop you from growing up. It simply means you now have someone beside you while you do it. And if you are still learning who you are, that journey can be beautiful. But it can also be difficult. Because the real question is not simply, are you young? The deeper question is, are you ready to grow without losing yourself, while also making room for another person to grow? But realizing that you may not be ready for marriage does not mean young love is always a mistake. That is where we need to change the way we think about this. The goal is not to say, never get married young. The goal is to understand that love and readiness are two different things. You can love someone and still need more time to grow. You can be sure about the person and still be unsure about yourself. And you can want marriage without being prepared for everything marriage will ask from you. That does not make your love weak. It makes you honest. Emotionally healthy couples understand something important. Marriage is not a finish line. It is a place where two people continue growing. So instead of asking, how young is too young? A better question is, what kind of person am I becoming? And am I ready to build with another person? That question changes everything. Because maturity is not simply about reaching a certain age. It is about learning how to handle responsibility. Imagine two young people who want to get married. They do not know everything. They still have dreams they are trying to understand. They still make mistakes. But they are willing to learn. They can talk about money before money becomes a problem. They can talk about children before children become an argument. They can talk about family, faith, work, personal goals, and expectations before marriage forces those conversations out of them. And when they disagree, they do not immediately see disagreement as proof that they chose the wrong person. They understand that two people can love each other and still see things differently. That is maturity. It is also important to stop treating "I don't know" as a weakness. A young husband does not need to know everything. A young wife does not need to know everything. Neither person should have to pretend to have all the answers just because they are married. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can say is, "I don't know, but let's figure it out together." That sentence can protect a relationship from a lot of unnecessary pressure. Because when you believe your partner must always have the answer, every mistake can feel like a failure. But when you understand that both of you are still learning, mistakes become opportunities to grow. This is also why healthy support matters. A young couple should not feel like they have to solve every problem alone. Sometimes you need wise people around you. People who can challenge you when you are wrong. People who can help you see what you cannot see. People who have experience with marriage and can give you honest advice. Not people who simply tell you what you want to hear. Because love can make you blind to things that someone outside the relationship can see clearly. And this is one reason preparation matters so much. Before marriage, couples should have real conversations. Not only about the wedding, about the life after the wedding. Who handles money? What happens when one person loses a job? Where will you live? How will you deal with family pressure? Do you want children? How will you raise them? What happens when one person needs more space? How do you handle anger? How do you apologize? What does loyalty mean to both of you? What are your boundaries? What are your dreams? What are you afraid of? These conversations may not feel romantic, but they can reveal things that romance hides. Because dating often shows you how someone behaves when things are exciting. Marriage eventually shows you how they behave when things are difficult. And that is why emotional preparation matters. You do not need to become perfect before getting married. Nobody does. But you should be willing to become more responsible, more honest, more patient, and more aware of yourself. You should be able to take responsibility for your own emotions instead of making your partner responsible for every feeling you have. You should be able to communicate instead of testing your partner. Instead of thinking, if they really loved me, they would know what I want. Learn to say what you need. Instead of becoming silent to punish them, explain what hurt you. Instead of expecting them to read your mind, give them the chance to understand you. Instead of trying to win every argument, learn how to protect the relationship. These small changes can make a huge difference. Because the healthiest young couples are not necessarily the ones who never struggle. They are the ones who understand what their struggles are trying to teach them. They learn that growing together does not mean becoming the same person. It means becoming better people while still making room for each other. And this brings us back to the question we started with. Is getting married too young always the problem? Not exactly. The deeper problem is getting married before you are ready to face the responsibility of becoming two people who must build one life together. Age can matter. Experience can matter. But emotional maturity matters too. A young person can sometimes have a level of maturity that surprises people. And an older person can still enter marriage without knowing how to communicate, take responsibility, or handle conflict. So the goal should never be to prove that you are old enough. The goal should be to honestly ask whether you are ready. Ready to grow, ready to listen, ready to sacrifice without losing yourself, ready to admit when you are wrong, ready to let your partner change without immediately assuming they are leaving you, ready to ask for help when the two of you cannot solve something alone. Because marriage does not require two people who already have life figured out. It requires two people who are willing to keep figuring it out together. Maybe that is the part we often misunderstand about getting married young. We focus so much on the number of years someone has lived that we forget to ask about the person they have become. The real question is not, are you young? It is, are you prepared to grow? Because you can marry young and still grow together. You can marry young and still build something beautiful. But if you expect marriage to finish your growth instead of becoming part of it, the person you love may eventually feel like the person standing in the way of who you are becoming. And perhaps that is the real problem. Not being young. Not falling in love too early, but believing that love alone can prepare two people for a life that requires so much more than love.
Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to this channel, and if you didn't understand, please watch again.